Hello everyone, welcome back to On The Fly. Today we're going to take a look at Day 6 of the World Junior Championship currently happening in Gothenburg, Sweden. So with that being said, we'll take a look at the scores from today's games, starting with a 10-2 victory for the US over Slovakia. Now this game, I will admit, is not really what it seems. And you might be wondering, how is it not? It's 10-2. Sure, there was it was a blowout. At the end of the day, the score did dictate a blowout. But when we actually watched the game, it was not that much of a blowout, and Slovakia actually held in there pretty good. The one thing I will mention is that the goaltender for Slovakia, their starting goaltender Adam Gajan, was not the starting goalie today. So an interesting move by the Slovaks, essentially throwing the game today. And that really spoke volumes to how Slovakia played. Their goaltending was a mess, I gotta say. They've had two goalies go in. Both of them played like absolute sieves. It's just what happens. Unfortunately for Slovakia, they just couldn't keep up with the offensive power of the U.S. Probably, I'd honestly argue probably 6 of the goals the U.S. scored today were because of bad goaltending. And when we look at that, I mean, it's not that bad, doesn't look that bad for Slovakia because they have their goaltender. He was a healthy scratch. It wasn't like he's injured. Now, that was what was reported. I don't know what's really going on. I don't think Slovakia would throw this game unless they expected Germany to beat Canada so they get a weaker opponent. I don't think that's the case, however. But nonetheless, the U.S. beat Slovakia 10-2, takes the top spot in Group B. And then we take a look at the second game of today, and this is one that didn't really matter that much in the grand scheme of things, especially for what was sort of going on in Group A. But nonetheless, it's always a good game when Sweden plays Finland, and this one was nothing short of amazing. 5-4 was your final. Yanni Niemann scored the winner in a shootout, shushed the crowd, and then got basically punched in the handshake line, which, I mean, good for Sweden. I mean, they pushed back against Niemann telling the entire crowd to be quiet. I don't know. Take it as you will. I honestly like it for both sides. Obviously, there's a lot of history between these two teams. Sweden fights back against someone who's sort of doing it, so they're in their head. Obviously, Finland's in Sweden's head, but at the same time, Finland has poked the bear. Sweden's the bear. We'll see if they get to play again. I really do hope so. I think that'd make for a great, great game. But nonetheless, we'll take a look at the next part here with the next game between the Czechs and the Swiss. Now, this game was honestly kind of surprising how close the score was. The Czechs outplayed the Swiss basically the entire game. Right up until essentially was the second period, right at the end, there was a really bad goal, just sort of a tip, a dump in essentially, just that got tipped up, went past the goaltender, and became almost a 2-1 game at that point. From there on out, it was a much closer game than probably what it should have been, but nonetheless, the Czechs played really, really well, in my opinion. The Swiss sort of just holding on for dear life as much as they can. Their goaltender played pretty well. But nonetheless, your final score here today, 4-2 for the Czechs. The Czechs will be in third spot in Group B, and Swiss will be in fourth. And then lastly, the last game of the day, and this is where everything sort of mattered in Group A, was between Canada and Germany. If Germany would have won in regulation, then they would have got basically boosted to the second spot in the group. If they lost, they'd be in the relegation round. And if there was an overtime, that's when basically everything would break loose. Today, they did not make any of the three. It was a regulation loss, which means Germany is the team that's relegated. So as we take a look at the news from today, the U.S. is building momentum. They played a really good game against the Slovaks today. Not to take anything away from the Slovaks. I mean, they played a pretty good game too. Their goaltending was just the concern, really. But it's not their starting goaltender, so no worries for the Slovaks in terms of that. But the U.S. are building momentum. They played a really good game today, and we've sort of been seeing them ever since that first Norway game. I made fun of them then. They've been making their way and slowly but surely playing better and better hockey, and they're starting to play their best hockey yet. So, team to watch out for. You got to be able to slow them down. They'll play Latvia. Latvia's relatively known for slowing teams down, but I have to say, it's going to be a tough game for them. Obviously, Latvia's not as skilled as the U.S. in any capacity. Latvia's already been blown out by Canada, we've seen the U.S. are better than, and we've seen the same thing with Sweden, who beat them 6-0. So overall, I think when we'll get to the playoffs and sort of the quarterfinal matchups in a little bit, but that's one of the things I'm really looking for is the U.S. can they keep the momentum going? Second news from today is Finland is in fact poking the bear. We've seen it time and time again. They just keep poking the bear. And they got to be careful with that, because if you do that, you're eventually going to get the bear and it's going to attack you. So just be careful for Finland, especially if they play again. Don't do too much, because you're going to have a problem at some point. Then we have Canada with some big time injury problem, as well as suspension. Connor Geekie today gave a bad hit right off the top, 11 minutes in, hit to the head, and they sent him to the box. In my opinion, it wasn't really a hit. It shouldn't be a hit to the head, but nonetheless, the Iihf is really cracking down on this, and they're very stingy with it at the end of the day. So when we look at what they're doing, what we've seen at this tournament is he'll get a game. The one redeeming factor that Geekie might get is the fact that did it at the start of the game. It was 11 seconds in, so he's basically already served a full game. So you might get saved on that account. As well as Savoy, he's hurt. You've already seen 2 defensemen go down. So it's just time and time again we're seeing this. Canada has injury problems, suspension problems, all these different things. And they finally called up Furcus, which is, to be honest, they should have called him up in the first place. Should have been on the team. Just had a rough camp. And so we finally get the Furcus Circus back in time. So that Furcus Circus back in town. So that is a great news for Canada, and we'll see if they can carry that on to the quarterfinal game. Then Germany is relegation bound, and the Czechs are starting to set the tone. They have played a pretty good game today, in my opinion, and they're going to have a tough matchup with Canada. And as we look at the final Group A and Group B standings, with Group A we have Sweden in first, Canada in second, Finland in third, Latvia in fourth, and Germany in fifth, who are going to be in the relegation spot. In Group B we have the US in first, Slovakia in second, Czechs in third, Swiss in fourth, and Norway in last place in Group B, which puts them also in the relegation round. Now, as we take a look at the playoffs, and this is where it gets exciting, because obviously when you have teams playing in the playoffs, fun things happen. Anybody can win. We even saw it last year. Canada almost got upset in the quarterfinals by Slovakia. Be curious to see what happens this year, because we have a lot of great games on tap. Starting off with the top seed in Group A, they will with Sweden. They will play the Swiss, and this game is going to be a really, really good game. I would not be surprised to see any sort of upset here. Sweden's been known to choke things as soon as they get to the playoffs. We'll see if they can continue, especially on home ice. They'll have the crowd behind them, and as I always say, the home team will always be an advantage in this tournament, but they also have a lot of pressure on them. So there's two definitely problems there, which they might be able to turn around and do a good thing, and I hope they can, because I am sort of cheering for Sweden in that capacity. But nonetheless, as we take a look at the second game, we have the second team in Group B. Slovakia will play Finland, and this game is going to be a great game, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if either team takes it. This is probably the closest game we'll see. I think Sweden will take it relatively easily, but still, once again, it's not guaranteed. This tournament's proven that nothing in this tournament's a guarantee. But when we look at this Slovakian-Finland game, honestly, I don't even have a good prediction. I'd say the Slovaks, they've looked really good. Gajan's going to have to stay on his head. For Finland, honestly, they can play their game. I don't see why or how Slovakia will be able to keep up with them. If Slovakia can play their game, Finland's done. I think when we look at it, if both teams play 100%, I'm going to give the slight edge to Slovakia. We haven't seen Finland be very consistent at this tournament, so I'm going to probably say my prediction will be Slovakia by a very slim margin. This game is probably the closest game we'll see to an overtime or a shootout. No shootouts, overtime. And then in the quarterfinals, with the third matchup, we'll take a look at the top team in Group B with the US playing Latvia. And in this game, it's going to be an interesting one as well, because we look at it, top team against the bottom team, and we've seen Latvia sort of get wiped, and I expect that to continue. I think the US will steamroll them. Don't think this will be the closest of games. I expect the US to take it handedly. I'd expect it to be 10 goals, but at the same time, who knows? It's the quarterfinals. Latvia plays a trap-style defense, and we've seen the US struggle with that, and we'll see if that continues, because Norway plays a very similar structure to what Latvia plays, and they had a lot of trouble with it, so you never really know in this tournament who's going to be doing what. And then the fourth one between Canada and the Czechs, and with Canada, I expect them to win it, but at the same time, it's not guaranteed. And when we look at it, it's just not a perfect guarantee that Canada can win it. It's the gold medal game from last year. That one went to overtime. I didn't think it was going to go to overtime. Did you? I don't think you did. Because if you did, then, I mean, you're a genie. But at the same time, I didn't think that game was going to go very far, but nonetheless, here we are. Canada-Czech quarterfinals. That's going to be a really, really good one as well. But as we take a look at the schedule with when the games are going to be, Slovakia plays Finland the first game of the day, Canada and the Czechs the second game of the day, US and Latvia third game of the day, and then we have Swiss and Sweden fourth game of the day. So the two basically best games we'll see are the first two in the morning, so be sure to be up. And let's have a good time. It's going to be a great quarterfinal matchup, as well as the relegation round is between Germany and Norway. We sort of mentioned that. That'll be on January 4th with the semifinal games. That one will be at 5 a.m. But with that being said, if you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. If you'd like to drop a like, if you really like to consider subscribing, tell all your friends and comment down below your thoughts on Day 6 of the World Junior Championship. Until next time, see you.